Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Tony from Street Church and The Inside Job. And you're watching the Inside Job podcast. Thanks for hopping on board. This is week 2 of, I think, a 2-week series that we have called 2020 Vision. And as I said last week, 2020 Vision is something that I have not had in quite some time, unfortunately. As they say, it's one of the first things that goes when you hit 40. And I hit 40 about a year ago now, so I'm not 41. I'm a couple years older than that. But it's really true, right? Your eyesight is one of the first things that you go when you hit middle age, and that was more than true in my case. That's why I'm always at the Family Dollar store trying to find one of these readers. So anyways, 2020 vision. Really important that we have the right eyesight, right? That we view life, that we view ourselves, that we view other people and God, of course, in the right way. That we have an accurate picture of all things God, of ourselves, and of other people. Because if we do, it will just enable us to, I believe, treat people in the way that we should treat them, and it will fill our lives with satisfaction and significance, and with contentment and with joy. And listen, who doesn't want those things? I don't know about you, but I'm on the back 9 right now. I'm 56 years old, so I don't know how many holes I have left to play, and I want all of those things in my life until I ride out into the great golf course in the sky. So, okay, week number 2. One of the things that we're going to talk about is a great little story in the Bible. It's from John chapter 8. I'm just going to paraphrase and chat about it, like a little bit. And the reason why it's so significant is because it reeks of one element of Christ that we need to embody and put into practice if we are going to care for people well who are living their lives on the fringes, right? Who are the down and outs, who are the overlooked people in life, who are marginalized, who in some way, shape, or form are living in crisis and suffering, right? And I think if we see what we're about to talk about as we should see it, right? I think if we see it as we should see it, if we have the right view of it, and if we adopt it into our lives, it'll just go a long way in helping us to treat people and to care for people well who are living in very, very difficult situations. Okay? So the story's out of John chapter 8, and I'm just going to chat briefly about it. I'm not going to read it. It's about one day Jesus, he was in a village, and they wanted to, like a bunch of religious people wanted to see what Jesus was going to do in this particular situation. So what they did was they found a woman who was most likely a prostitute, who was in the act of adultery with some man who was most likely married, right? And they dragged her out. They didn't drag the guy out, though, but they dragged her out. And the Bible makes it clear that she was in the very act when they dragged her out. So that means that she probably did not have on, she probably did not have an AC/DC shirt on like I have now, or hat on her head, right? She was most likely in her birthday suit. So she comes out naked, and there's a crowd of people around there. Okay, a crowd of people around there, and everybody's asking Jesus, what should we do with this woman who was caught in the act of adultery? The law says we should stone stone her to death. And after they say that, what Jesus, he does something very, very, very interesting. He does something that Bible scholars have been debating about for centuries. What he does was he stoops down to the ground, most likely on his, hands and knees, and he begins to draw in the dirt with his finger. Bible scholars for centuries have been wondering, what was it he was drawing on the ground? What could it have been, right? And I think that's the wrong question. I think that's the wrong question entirely. I think the what is a lot less significant to the why question, right? Why did Jesus stoop down to the ground, get on all fours, and begin to draw in the dirt? Why? For me, so at that point in time, Jesus was the man. I mean, wherever he went, he was drawing huge crowds. Everybody wanted to see what the next cool miracle he was going to do, what the next thing he was going to say out of his mouth. I mean, he had crowds and they were following him, and they were all waiting to see what he would do next. So when he went down on all fours and went to the ground and began to draw in the dirt, what would inevitably happen next? What would inevitably happen, in my opinion, was all of the people who were there, who were setting their gaze upon this woman who was in the middle of the circle, and she was buck naked, who were just gawking over her, staring at her. When Jesus went on the ground and began to draw, all of those eyes would have been drawn to him, wondering what he's doing, what he's drawing. Because wherever Jesus went, people paid attention to him. So, Jesus most likely, in my opinion, knew that if he went to the ground, it would shift the attention from her onto him. It would cause all of their eyes to be drawn away from her and put onto him. So, if that's true, think about the level of thoughtfulness and of consideration it took for him to do that. That he was so mindful and thoughtful of everybody who was looking at her naked body, that he went down to the ground and he began to draw and draw and draw and draw, knowing that it would shift the attention from this poor woman onto him. And for me, what compelled that behavior by him was thoughtfulness and consideration. A thoughtful consideration of this poor woman. I think that if we are going to, if we're going to care for people well who are in tough situations, whether they are homeless, whether they are just struggling with poverty, or whether they're in the middle of some crisis that has brought hopelessness in their lives, I think we need to get our minds off of ourselves, and we need to have thoughtful consideration for other people. Listen, we all grow up thinking about ourselves far too much. From day one, we are taught to be all you can be, get all you can get, do all that you can do. And if anybody tries to get in the way, step over them. Okay? It's the American way, right? To a large part. Jesus is the antithesis of that. He's the opposite of that, right? I think a thoughtful consideration for the well-being of others is going to enable us to really, really care for people well, right? And it's the right view. It's the right view. It's always the right view to take our eyesight and to take our minds off of ourselves and to put it on other people, right? That's the way that we need to see things. That's the way that we need to see life, right? That's the right vision that we need to have. A thoughtful and a thoughtful, considerate vision of others, elevating them above ourselves. So much so that we would do anything to take the attention off of other people's suffering and to put it on ourselves. I mean, I think for centuries, I think that people have been asking all the wrong question about what was it that Jesus was drawing. What could it have been? Debates on this, debates on this, debates on other things. So many controversies over what could it have been. I think they missed the boat entirely, right? I think the why question is so much more relevant. And why he was doing it, it was just, it completely came out of a thoughtful consideration of this poor woman. And if we have the same view of the importance of thoughtfulness and of consideration for others, it's a can't miss proposition in terms of loving people well, especially people who are living their lives in crisis. So I hope that this, has encouraged you. It just reminded me that something as simple as, as thoughtfulness, and something as seemingly mundane as consideration can go a long way into loving people well. So, week 2 down. We're going to start a new series next week. You better be on because it's going to be awesome. I'll see you then.